Hey guys, Josh here, and I love farming games. As you can see, they are what I play the most, and I spent thousands of hours on them just in the last few years. For this video, I thought it would be fun to go through my Switch and Steam records and see what are the 13 farming games I played the most. Why 13? Well, I wanted to do a top 10 at first, but there were just too many great games I wanted to talk about, so I had to include a few more. Of course, I'll tell you what I like about these games and why I played them so much, so if you're looking for something that will keep you entertained for a long time, I think you should be able to find that here. And if you do, please leave a like on the video so even more people can find out about their next game to spend hundreds of hours on. By the way, this video was inspired by Payton from Payton's Corner and Iona. They both did very similar videos on their channel, so I'll put links to those in the description. Please check them out, because even though some of our games are similar, a lot of them are different as well. But let's get started. In number 13, we have Kinseed with 42 hours. Most of that time was in a span of a few weeks when the game finally came out after years in early access on Steam, and I was completely obsessed with it. One of the core mechanics of this game is that you start as a kid, and then as the years pass, you get older, as do everybody else, until eventually you pass away and you continue playing as your child. You can just keep playing like this from one generation to the next, and of course, some things like your money and some of your stats will carry over, making each generation a bit better than the previous one. You can even set up a schedule and give chores to your spouse and children, which is something I'd love to see in more games as it makes it feel like you're not the only one working. You can also have a shop, hire workers, and all of the crafting mini-games are pretty fun, making the gameplay very addictive and you always feel like you have something to do. Kinseed has such a large world to explore with various towns and events. Plus, the game recently got a major update, adding a lot of customization, so you can now fully decorate the interior of your house as well as the different areas in your yard, and there's a really good selection of furniture to unlock. The latest update also added a progress screen where you can easily see everything you've done and collected, which made me realize that even with over 40 hours, I'm still so far from completing everything. This is a game that can feel a bit tricky to get back into if you've stopped playing for a long time, just because there are so many different items and mechanics, but I really want to take the time to properly get back into it as it is such an addictive and fun game. If you'd like to know more about Kinseed, I do have a review on my channel, and I will link that in the description along with reviews from other games on this list, so check that out after this video. And keep in mind that a lot of things have improved since my review, but it should still give you a good idea of what to expect from this game. The next game at number 12 doesn't need much of an introduction. We have Stardew Valley with 66 hours. Most of these hours were played back in 2016 when the game first released, but I've been trying to pick it back up recently and catching up on everything since the game has changed so much with all of the updates it received since its initial launch. The next update, 1.6, will be releasing on March 19th for PC, so I'll probably dive back into it around that time. There's just so much to do in Stardew Valley. It's amazing to see how it's still being updated for free. Plus, if you ever get bored of the base content or you want to customize your experience a bit and you're playing on PC, there are so many great mods to choose from. This game takes a direct inspiration from the Harvest Moon series, which is now Story of Seasons, so you can find most of the classic gameplay mechanics, fun characters and festivals, fishing, mining, farm upgrades, with also tons of possibilities for decorating. But it also does so much more. You have the community center, different areas to unlock and explore, and you can easily spend hundreds of hours into this game. For me, I still have a long way to go. I feel like this game deserves so much more of my attention, but as you'll see, my time has been consumed by at least 11 other amazing games. There's really so many great games recently, so let's keep going. In number 11, we have one of my favorite games of 2022, Harvestella with 75 hours. This is a hybrid of farming sim and action RPG, and it's one of the most beautiful games on the Nintendo Switch in my opinion. The combat is a bit more involved than what you would get in other games on this list. You have to switch between different jobs, each with their own playstyle and abilities, and it can get a bit challenging at times. That being said, farming also plays an important part as you need to cook a lot of food, which looks delicious by the way, in order to replenish your health and stamina. Harvestella is very story-driven and it has a pretty fun plot if you don't mind reading a lot as there's no voice acting, and it will take you maybe 50 to 60 hours to complete the story. Besides that, there's also a bunch of side quests, some more interesting than others, and just so many things to do and collect if you're a completionist. There are these things called fairy orders, which are kind of like achievements. There's also an encyclopedia where you can see all of the enemies you defeated, items you collected, and dishes you've cooked. And it's really fun trying to get everything. Even at 75 hours, I still feel like I have quite a few things to complete, and I'd love to go back to Harvestella at some point. The only thing I would say is lacking with this game is the customization. The character creation options are extremely limited, and you also cannot decorate your farm too much besides just placing some fences. So if you're looking for a game to spend dozens of hours decorating, this won't be for you. But if you're looking for a fun story and a lot of combat, you will enjoy it. In number 10, we have Immortal Life with 80 hours on Steam. This is the most recent game on this list. It got its full release in January 2024 after almost 2 years in early access, and honestly, it is so underrated. First, it's a Chinese farming sim, so the atmosphere is completely different than the usual. The art is amazing, but it also brings enough new ideas to the genre to keep the gameplay interesting. For example, the cooking is very interactive. It's a bit like Overcooked, Lemon Cake, or Sugar Shack, where you have to bring different ingredients to the correct cooking stations, and it feels very immersive. The combat is also different, and you're basically shooting these swords at enemies, making it feel more like a shoot 'em up than just a basic action RPG. The game has just so many little features and things like that that make it stand out from the plethora of farming games currently available, and it's very refreshing, all while still feeling like a proper farming game. So I'm 80 hours in now, and I am getting very close to finishing the story, but I will admit I am getting to a point in the game that feels a bit tedious. Most of the story progresses at a pretty good pace. You finish a quest, you get rewarded, do the next quest, and it all goes very smoothly until later in game, where you now have to grow these legendary crops, and without getting into details, it's kind of grindy, takes a long time, and it kills the nice flow that the game had up to that point. I'm almost done, so I'm going to push through for a few more hours, but after that, I don't think I'll go back to it too much. I finished decorating my farm. I made a little tour video if you're interested, and the fields are a bit small in this game, so it can be a bit tricky, but you can still do a good amount of decorating, and there's a good selection of furniture. Even though I would have liked a slightly better pacing towards the end, I got hours and hours of fun with Immortal Life, so I'm happy with my experience, and I would recommend it to anyone who's looking for a fun twist to the farming sim genre. In number 9, we have My Time at Sandrock with 83 hours. These are my hours on Steam. I did play the game a little bit on the Switch just to try things out, but honestly I feel like both versions don't even compare. It's just infinitely better on PC, so yeah, these are the hours that I'm counting. My Time at Sandrock is the sequel to My Time at Portia. I think most of you are probably familiar with it at this point, but it's mostly about gathering materials, crafting, and there is a bit of farming and ranching in there as well. It's quite story-driven, it is voice-acted for the most part, and it's got an interesting plot about reviving this small desert town of Sandrock with a fun cast of characters. Similarly to Immortal Life, the story does get a bit long. I'm not stuck or anything, but I'm only a bit more than 2/3 done, so I think I'll probably finish the story around the 100-hour mark. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm starting to feel like I just want to wrap up the story and do my own thing. Fortunately, Sandrock has a good amount of side activities. You can upgrade and decorate your workshop, participate in festivals, make friends, go on dates, get married, and there's also a ton of side quests which can be just as interesting as the main story. There's a multiplayer mode too, and it's a bit more of a sandbox experience separate from the single player storyline. So after spending 100 hours by yourself, you can easily spend another 100 with your friends. I'm definitely going to keep playing this game for a long time, and if you like games with a lot of crafting, you will definitely get your money's worth with My Time at Sandrock. In number 8, we have Coral Island with 92 hours. About half of these hours are from the alpha and early access, and the other half from the full release, and I am playing on Steam. Coral Island is a pretty good farming sim. It feels similar to Stardew Valley in many ways, but it also has enough new ideas, such as diving underwater to clean the ocean, giving the game its own identity. The main gameplay loop is very fun and addictive. There's quite a lot to do, a museum to fill up with hundreds of fish and artifacts, one of the largest cast of characters to befriend and romance, and a huge field to decorate however you'd like with a good amount of different styles of furniture. I can't deny that I had a good time, but I kind of hit a wall in the game now. I've had lots of bugs with the sheds that are used to store chests and makers, which makes it hard to finish up my farm. I found that the current story ending was also a bit underwhelming, and some quests cannot even be completed until they update the game with more content later this year. Among other things that are teased or shown in the game that cannot be accessed, such as the savannah, or areas that are not finished like the Mermaid Kingdom. I think that Coral Island is a good game that does have a lot to offer, but I am disappointed as it still feels a bit like an early access to me, so I stopped playing it for now, but I will go back to it hopefully in a few months when everything is in the game and fully functional. In number 7, we have Sunhaven with 96 hours. Sunhaven is a fantasy farming sim with lots of RPG elements. It is available on Steam right now, but there should be a Switch version releasing at some point. If you're looking for a game with crazy amount of content, a game in which you'll never get bored, this is the one. It does have a main story like a lot of games on this list, but I think it really shines with all of its side activities and the huge amount of customization. There are 3 different farms that you can fully decorate, countless pieces of furniture, and if you ever feel like there's not enough, there is some DLC available. The game features 3 different towns, each with their own shops, characters, and events, so it's safe to say that you won't run out of things to do. You have different skill trees, one for mining, one for combat, fishing, farming, and I think that's what makes this game really addictive. No matter what you do, you're always making some progress, gaining experience, and unlocking abilities that will make things a bit better. You get powerful magic spells to use in combat, to destroy rocks in the mines, or to water crops, and everything just feels so satisfying. Sunhaven can feel a bit overwhelming at times, but you do have an option to make the days longer. There are also a few things that you can deactivate if they annoy you, like the seasonal bosses, and the game doesn't have time limits for the most part, so you can do things at your own pace. While Sunhaven is a blast to play by yourself, you can also enjoy it with up to 7 of your friends, and you don't even need to make a new character when joining someone, you can just keep your existing one, which makes it really easy and convenient. So I'm currently 96 hours in, half of these hours were in early access, then I made a new character for the full release, and I'm still not done with the story. My farm looks like a mess, but I'm starting to work on that, and I have not even started thinking about befriending the characters. I've been spending most of my time foraging, mining, and I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of everything this game has to offer, and I can see myself returning to it for years to come. Next, I passed the 100 hours mark with game number 6, Dinkum, at 111 hours. And even though this game is still in early access, it feels like a complete experience. To me, Dinkum is kind of like a mix between Animal Crossing and Minecraft. You're on a large procedurally generated island, which is inspired by Australia, giving us animals and an atmosphere we don't see in a lot of games. And there's not too much on the island at first, but gradually visitors will show up and you will build shops for them, until eventually you have a general store, a furniture store, a clothing shop, a hair salon, an airport, and so much more. What I like is that you can place these buildings anywhere on the island. You can also terraform to make things look however you'd like, and the whole place just feels like a huge sandbox you can play around in, decorate, customize, and do whatever you want. The story and interactions with the NPCs are pretty bare bones, but if you like games where you can make up your own objectives and feel like you have a lot of freedom, this one is for you. And even if you're not that into decorating or terraforming, the game still has a lot of content, a good progression system with different skills and licenses that gradually unlock more features. Some of these things you can unlock are vehicles, so you can have, for example, a motorcycle, a jet ski, a helicopter, all of these different and fun ways to explore the island. It also has multiplayer up to 4 players, and just like in Sunhaven, you don't even need to create a new character, so that's very convenient. And there's just so much to do in this game. I wish I could show you some interesting stuff on my island, but I still have a long way to go. However, if I can recommend you something, I saw an island tour video by Ellie Jelly recently, and she played for over 1,800 hours. And this just shows how much time someone can put into the game. And if you like decorating in games, you absolutely have to watch her video. I will link it in the description, and I'm pretty confident when I say that it will make you want to play Dinkum. We're now entering our top 5, and in number 5 we have Roots of Pacha at 133 hours. This is another one of these games that I've been playing since the alpha and beta. I spent about 50 hours on those earlier versions, and the rest has been with the full release. The game is available now on Steam, Switch, PS4, and PS5, and all versions run great, but I've been playing mostly on Steam since it released there first. Roots of Pacha is a farming sim that takes place in the Stone Age, Everything is very rudimentary when you start, but as you progress, you discover new technologies with the help of your fellow clan members. So you'll figure out how to tame wild animals, how to make your own seeds, how to transform your crops into other ingredients, and so on. This offers a really rewarding progression system as you're constantly learning and unlocking new things through at least the first 30 to 40 hours as you complete the main story. But as with most of these other games, there's a lot more you can do. Increase the quality of all of your crops, cook the different dishes, tame the various types of animals, and of course, decorate. Not only can you customize the interior of your house and your 2 fields, you can also place down paths and furniture in most areas of the village. One way in which Roots of Pacha really differentiates itself from decorating in other games, however, is the painting. You can get these different canvases and pots on which you can draw pretty much anything you'd like, and it's really fun if you're creative and even more fun with friends, as this game also supports up to 4 players online. I would say that as of right now, I'm mostly done with Roots of Pacha. I might go back to it for a few hours whenever there's an update, but it has been a really good time. In number 4, we have Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life, just under the 200-hour mark at 195. I played 125 hours of the Japanese version since that came out earlier, then 70 hours with the English version, and both of these on the Nintendo Switch. This game is a remake of Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life, which originally released for the GameCube, so even though it does have a few quality of life improvements, it is kind of like an older game and might appeal more to those who have played the original than those who got into farming sims more recently. The main feature here is that you start as a young farmer taking over your father's farm, and each year one chapter will end and new events will happen, so you'll get married, have a child, and then your child, along with yourself and the other villagers, will grow older. The game is divided into 6 chapters, which is when the story ends, so it will take a while before you can see the ending. The only problem is that there's not necessarily enough content to keep you busy during these 6 years, so I feel like a lot of players will probably stop playing before getting there. For example, in my current playthrough, I'm approaching year 4, but I already maxed out my relationships with everyone, I grew almost all of the hybrid crops and cooked the different dishes with them, I built almost all of the farm upgrades, so year 4, 5, and 6 won't be filled with a lot of things to do, and I might start sleeping to skip some days. That being said, it is still a long game, and the Encyclopedia, which is a new addition from the remake, does make it fun to track everything, but it certainly does not have as much content as other games on this list. Alright, we're now getting into our top 3, and with 358 hours, my third most played farming game is another Story of Seasons game, this time Pioneers of Olivetown. I played 310 hours with the Japanese Switch version, once again because that came out earlier. Then I played 30 hours with the English Switch version and 18 hours with the Steam version. This one is different from A Wonderful Life because the main story is quite short. You can easily finish it within the first summer or fall, maybe even spring if you're really quick. But the most fun here is all of the side activities. You can level up all of your skills, unlock all the crafting recipes and outfits, complete the museum with the fish, animal photos and artifacts, deliver the different food orders for Lovett, and of course, decorate your farm. The decoration mechanics are not ideal. For example, you cannot rotate furniture or place anything on top of paths, but sometimes working with restrictions is good for your creativity, and I had a lot of fun designing my farm layout, and it definitely kept me playing for longer than if I couldn't decorate. The game has received a lot of updates since its initial launch. It's far from perfect, but Marvelous really listened to the players' feedback and made it so much better. For example, you can now queue up to 10 items in the makers, so you don't have to fill them up constantly. I started a brand new playthrough recently. Feel free to subscribe if you don't want to miss those live streams, and I feel like I can enjoy my experience way more than when I first played. I also want to try to complete absolutely everything this time around, and I'm just getting started, so I can see myself spending at least another 100 to 200 hours into Olivetown. In number 2, yes, we have another game from Marvelous, Rune Factory 5 with 386 hours. More specifically, I played 275 hours with the Japanese version, then when it released in English, I played that for 105 hours. Both of these were on the Switch, but then I also played for 6 hours on Steam. This game does run a bit better on PC, but I personally didn't mind the few frame rate drops on the Switch. Also, graphically, it's pretty much the same on both platforms. So yeah, most of my time with this was on the Switch. If you're not familiar with the Rune Factory series, it started as a spin-off of the Story of Seasons series when it was still called Harvest Moon, and basically they're farming games but with a lot of RPG elements such as combat, skills, and a heavier focus on the story. Quite similar to Harvestella actually, but they still feel a bit closer to classic farming sims with festivals, interactions with villagers, and more time spent farming and ranching. All of the Rune Factory games can keep you playing for hundreds and hundreds of hours, because even after the main story, which took me maybe 40 hours in Rune Factory 5, there's still so much to do if you want to complete everything. You can tame hundreds of different monsters, get all of your crops to level 10, grind to increase the quality of your soil, craft better equipment, make all of the cooking recipes, ship all of the different items, increase your skills, complete all of the achievements. There's a never-ending list of things to do. Just keep in mind that with most Rune Factory games, the main story flows pretty nicely, but the extra content can definitely be quite grindy. So if you're looking for that kind of grindy experience, I think you'll have a good time with Rune Factory 5. I don't think I'll ever finish it to 100%, that would probably take me a couple more hundreds of hours, but I like to go back to it once in a while, and I'll probably play it more as we get new details on Rune Factory 6 and Rune Factory Project Dragon. And now, the number one game, the one I played the most in the last few years, is not exactly a farming game, so I debated including it in this list, but you can grow some crops and it is similar in many ways, and that game is none other than Animal Crossing New Horizons for the Nintendo Switch, with over 1,180 hours. Actually, I do think it's more than that because I played for about 1,000 hours on my first Switch, then I got a second Switch and made another island, but I feel like after that point, even if I kept playing on my first Switch, the time was no longer updating properly and it got stuck at 1,010 hours. I'm pretty sure I played so much more as I was still streaming it multiple times a week, but anyway, it says I played 1,010 on one Switch and 170 on the other one, so we'll go with that for that video, but I wouldn't be surprised if in reality I was much closer to 2,000 hours. I think we all have a somewhat similar story with this game. I've always loved the Animal Crossing series, but New Horizons came out in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic. I had just gotten laid off from my job, so I was staying at home and I was playing this game every single day. Eventually, I decided to start this YouTube channel. I made a little tour of my island along with tons of other videos about this game for about a year until Pioneers of Olive Town came out, and I started covering different games. Let me know if you were there for the Animal Crossing videos, and if you were, well, thank you so much for sticking around for so long. Just like Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing doesn't need too much of an introduction, and most of my time was spent decorating my island. There's just so many different pieces of furniture, so many possibilities with terraforming, and this game was a great creative outlet for me. However, I also had fun just doing the daily tasks, fishing, catching bugs, and to this day, I still have not fully completed the museum, so maybe I should get back to it and finish that. Recently, I've been feeling so busy with all of these games that keep releasing every month, but Animal Crossing New Horizons is always such a chill and comforting game to go back to, and even after more than 1,000 hours, I don't feel bored or burned out, and I still have a lot of things to do in this game, especially since we got the Happy Home Paradise DLC and the huge update that came with it, and I'm still so behind on all of that content. For me, Animal Crossing New Horizons is definitely one of the best games on the Switch, and no doubt my favorite Animal Crossing game. So these are my 13 most played farming games for the Nintendo Switch and Steam. Now I'm curious to know, what are your most played games? Do we have any in common? Let me know maybe your top 5 or 10 or 13 in the comments, and let's see if certain games come up more than others. Leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and I'll see you all in the next video.